some Midwestern boy that you wanna bring home to your mama, even though I bring you joy. Baby, I'm not the toy you wanna play with at night. Too many things I've seen, too many people and places I've been. Now thinking about doing those things I shouldn't be doing, something I've never done before. I want something to fuck me up. Need somebody to fuck me up. Everyone feels like that. Fuck me up. Fuck me up. Fuck me up. I'm that little hayseed that you know from somewhere south of Chicago.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, podcast fans of all ages. If you notice something, my voice is a whole lot deeper today because I don't know if it's illness or
I think you're bringing sexy back, Dave.
bringing sexy somewhere, probably to a landfill. I'm not really sure, but
Whatever it is, never complain about
yeah,
it.
I'm getting my Barry White voice. going
Exactly.
today.
The resonance is cascading.
There you go.
That's a very
I'm appreciating. But thank you for joining us on the Political Deep Dive. I'm Dave Valente, joined as always by Dan, the man Fishman. How you doing, Dan?
I am doing well. Howdy to all of our fan and no, I'm just kidding. Thanks for everybody who's tuned in so far. It's
Yeah.
always you guys are what keeps us coming back.
That's right.
So like,
Entertaining the masses.
subscribe, join our OnlyFans, our new OnlyFans page. Only Dave.
Only
And,
Dave.
yeah,
Only
exactly.
Dave. Yeah.
What's going to be nice about it is, so Dave, you have lost state 50 pounds, 70 pounds.
Yeah, about 50. Yeah.
Yeah. On Dave's OnlyFans page, that 50 pounds poses by itself. So we'll talk about it later on. We'll have
you can look at my
page.
Frankenfoot for my Only Feet page.
Nice. That's outstanding.
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a relatively quiet week.
Yeah.
Not too much crazy has happened. And as a matter of fact, I was thinking about this the other day. I think we've talked about this a little bit, but there's a stock index called the VIX, the Volatility Index.
Yeah.
And it's essentially a stock that is based on craziness. And when Trump announced the tariffs in April, it went crazy. It went from 45 to 70. And then it stayed up there for a while, but it's back down to 51 right now. So the world is relatively stable over the last few weeks.
Well, I hold off on that. I mean, we do have things happening. One, the tariff reintegration when because that period is running out. Where Trump had
definitely true.
You got that. You got the news of Joe Biden having prostate cancer and it's metastasized, so much more serious. Although they think it's much the way that the hormones are, that it's much more treatable. You've
You know what
got
the difference is between a vitamin and a hormone?
I don't know.
You can't make a vitamin. I'll be here all week, folks. Um,
Wow.
that's an
Oh my goodness.
old joke.
But,
Um,
yeah,
you know the
uh
difference is between a garbanzo bean and a chickpea?
yes, I do.
The Russians
Donald
never
Trump's
had
never
a
had a
garbanzo
garbanzo
bean.
bean on his face.
Exactly.
Um,
All right.
yeah.
Yeah, all those things are true.
Oh,
I
you
would
got the
say the
$400 or $400 million plane from Qatar to Donald Trump.
that's
Now
some
and
crazy shit.
holy shit. So, like, I don't understand. I don't know where Joe's at tonight. But I like, who thinks this is a good idea? I mean, I'm not even accusing Qatar of being the ones that's going to spy, but the fact remains that this plane has been outside of a chain of jurisdiction that you would be able to monitor whether they were able to put listening devices and anything on that
Yeah.
plane. Um, you know, again, the whole emoluments thing where apparently he's going to be able to take it once he leaves the office. Like, you know,
Right. I mean that
I mean,
that that part of itself is completely crazy, right? The idea that you can get around the emoluments by saying, "Well, we're not going to pay you while you're president, but after you're president, we're going to give you $1 billion."
yeah,
That's crazy,
yeah.
right?
I mean, and just
I mean,
think that
it probably happens.
well, yeah, I mean, it probably happens, but I mean, look at what happened during that trip. That the Qatari government got billions of dollars in contracts from the U.S.,
Yep.
billions of dollars weaponry. I mean,
Yep.
it's definitely a concern that there is major pay to play going on here because I mean the Qataris and the UAE and other Gulf states have invested heavily in the Trump coin. The
Yeah.
so I mean, it's a pay to play system right now.
Yep.
And, and nice topic we're talking about habeas corpus. I mean, that's another thing that we were going to talk about last week. We just had a bunch of stuff we were talking about last week, and
Right.
it's not that it's not important. I think it did result, did really need its own show because habeas corpus, like due process, is part of the whole due process thing. Is that without habeas corpus, the government can do whatever the hell it wants to. Hey, Craig, good to see you tonight. But habeas corpus is one of the most fundamental protections that we have in a free society. It means that the government has to have something. Literally, the government has to have a body.
Well, it's that they have to have a reason for holding your body. It's sort of the first legal acknowledgement that your body belongs to you. Something the libertarians say all the time. You own yourself. In
Yep.
fact, we sell merchandise to that effect. You
Yeah.
cannot buy a pin or a t-shirt.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When they deny you your liberty, they have to have a reason to do that,
Right. And
and
this
they
is
have
an
to go
old
for it.
principle. And say it actually dates back to the first time it's codified is in the Magna Carta, which everybody knows,
Hmm.
1215, Runnymede, Magna Carta, and formalized in the Habeas Corpus Act, 1679. So habeas corpus has been in common law, common English and English derivative law, which we are,
Yep.
for 450 years. And that is a long time. Now, during that 450-year history, it's had a couple shaky moments. So obviously, Lincoln suspended
Yep.
habeas corpus. And let's talk about two, right? Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus, which essentially says that you have to have a writ, a piece of paper, in order to put somebody in jail, in order to deny them
Yep.
their liberty. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless, when in case of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it.
And that's what
Uh,
they're trying to sell us.
right.
At least
They're
Stephen Miller
they're
is trying
arguing
to
that
sell us
right
that
that this is an
it's an
invasion.
invasion.
Right.
Which
But
no, I mean
right.
it's a really shitty invasion if
Well,
you
it's
think about it.
especially tough because so right now the You know what? I'm going to move this over here so I'm looking at the camera more when I'm talking. So right now, the government is arguing in front of the Supreme Court that the court should not issue, and let me get the legal term for this exactly right. Here it is. The court should not issue putative class action. Putative is not punitive. Punitive means that they're issuing, and hopefully some of the lawyers on here can help me out with this, but that they're issuing things for a class action before the class has actually been certified. And so they're trying to say that all these people are losing their due process rights as a class, and a district court can block that by issuing a injunction that protects everybody. And the court is arguing no, you can't, or the Trump administration is arguing no, you can't do that. You have to protect each person's rights individually.
Yes.
You can't claim that it is both an organized invasion and that it's a whole bunch of individuals at the same time.
Yeah.
So there's a problem in the argument there in the first place, which, to her credit, Justice Elena Kagan sort of pointed out. But that's sort of my initial bit on habeas corpus. And most people would say that Lincoln's suspension of habeas corpus was probably a mistake.
Yeah.
It is difficult in a civil war to say, oh, these people are the spies and these people are our allies, because,
Well, and in
you're literally
context
fighting yourself.
it does matter in that at the time that the Civil War started, Congress was not in session, and
Right.
the ability to call Congress at that point was a little more limited than say, today you could call Congress into session and fly everyone in at least a day or two, get everyone together. Um, Not that I'm arguing that what Lincoln did was right. It was just that in context, it's a little more understandable than what Trump is trying to, or at least Stephen
Yeah,
Miller,
no,
the assistant deputy, what is he, deputy chief of staff for Donald Trump, um, and Human Penis is trying to push on the United States is this idea that we're being invaded and that habeas corpus will need to be suspended. Um, and there's been some concerning things like he's been putting out like when people are marching in the streets or people are resisting what ICE is doing, that it's a reason to suspend habeas corpus. No, that's protest. And that's the thing that people don't realize. If you lose habeas corpus, you're losing. You're essentially losing the Bill of Rights. I mean,
right.
you don't have the right to assembly. The government can disappear you. The government can come into your home without warrant. The
Well,
government can do whatever it wants to. It can
and
it can. I mean, one of the fundamental. It's not a bug of a dictatorship, but a feature that can move people from here to there. Like just like the Trump administration saying, "Hey, we're going to take all these Gazans, we're going to put them in Libya."
right. Well, but there's been the Constitution was written with a lot of objections to what happened under British rule in mind.
Yes.
And one of the most important ones is your defined right in the Bill of Rights, your right to a speedy trial, your right to an attorney. The government can't just say there's a crime, accuse you of a crime, which actually might give them the right to lock you up if they could get, the right to arrest you from a judge.
Yeah.
But then you have a right to a speedy trial. So the judge then rules almost immediately whether or not the police have made their case and whether or not they can hold you. So habeas corpus is tied into so many fundamental principles, and it protects you in ways that are bigger than just going to jail. The police cannot just detain you and
Yeah.
ask you questions, because that also violates habeas corpus. The police have no right to detain you. They can't sit you in the back of the squad car and sweat answers out of you. anything like that, unless they've got a legitimate reason to.
Yeah.
Those are fundamental principles. And when you take them away, we say all the time, the police would make a lot more arrests if they didn't have to worry about those pesky warrants. But the problem is they'd arrest a lot more innocent people. And our brand of democracy, our brand of government, our brand of organization is based on the idea that it's better for 100 guilty men to go free than one innocent man to be convicted.
Yeah.
And so,
And well, I mean, just think of it this way: we've seen the abuses that have happened so far in the Trump administration with people deemed here illegally being detained
yeah,
and sent abroad. Remove that for the that break from you know actual American citizens, and how
yeah,
many mistakes are they going to make? How many innocent people are going to be detained indefinitely?
yeah,
Um, it's you can't have. I mean, if they declare habeas corpus suspended or null and void or whatever they're planning to do, that is the day that the United States ends and we become the People's Democratic Republic of America.
right. Because let's point out that in the People's Democratic Republic of China, which is how they like to be called,
Yep.
you absolutely can be held without, at the whim of the government, without the
Yep.
right to a trial. In fact, Americans in China have suffered that fate. There's
Yep.
a famous joke. A An American, an Englishman, and a Chinese citizen are sitting around talking about what's the best feeling in the world. And the British person says, "Well, for me, the best feeling in the world is when I come home and I see my lovely garden, my wife sitting there with a pot of tea, and I sit down next to her and we have a nice cuppa. That's the best feeling in the world." The American says, "Well, I think you're right that that's a good feeling, but for me, the best feeling in the world is when I get home and there's a giant steak on the grill, and I sit down and I bite the shit out of that steak. That's the best feeling in the world." And the Chinese person says, "Well, you both raise excellent points, but for me, the best feeling in the world is when I'm asleep in bed at night and the police kick the door open and say, 'Mr. Wong, you are under arrest.'" They're like, "What? How is that the best feeling in the world?" "Mr. Wong is my neighbor."
Okay, well, there you go.
That's habeas corpus, folks, right there in a
Yeah.
nutshell.
Yeah,
Right? The
and we've
ability
seen.
to go ahead.
I mean, I mean, we've seen, Russia was and still is, even especially with the Putin regime, um, famous for disappearing people. Like Alexei Navalny getting sent to a foreign prison camp. That you might get things like show trials like they have in Russia, um, where no real evidence is presented, or the judges are don't care what is presented in your favor. They're going to convict you. Um,
Right.
but the old Soviet system was rife with people being disappeared.
Yep.
They taken off the street. You never hear from them again. You see that happen in North Korea. You see that happen in China. You see that happen all the time now.
Well,
Uh,
and but not even that long ago, you saw it happen in America, the American South during the Civil Rights Movement,
oh
right?
yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
what happened why we were able to prevail, and I say we as the collective American we that wants our country to be better and respectful of everybody, is that, you know, uh, the Freedom Riders, Mickey, I can't think of their names right now, but it'll come to me. Somebody in thinking, look it up. But three guys who, they were down there trying to help black people register to vote in
Yep.
Mississippi, and they sort of got run out of town. And then the local sheriff pulled them over, dragged them from the car, and they killed them all.
Yep.
Right?
If you ever get a chance to watch the movie Mississippi Burning, fantastic movie.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Gene Hackman
Yeah.
is in that. He just passed. That movie would be a fine tribute to
Yes.
watching what happened. And of course, the thing is, the sheriff who had the power to arrest them didn't arrest them because he knew that that put them in the legal system, that they had the rights of habeas corpus, that they couldn't be
Yep.
held without a charge. So instead, he ran him out of town, and then they ambushed him and killed him on the road.
Yep.
And that's habeas corpus is fundamental to all of our things. It's a due process, habeas corpus. They are really, two gloves on the, I don't want to say two gloves on the same hand, two hands on the same body, two
Yeah.
sides of the same coin.
That's
the
right.
metaphor I'm looking
And then you gotta toss in the
for. Yeah,
concept of being innocent until proven guilty. Those three things are the benchmark of American justice.
right.
Not always working. I will grant anyone that the American justice sometimes is not justice. But
Yeah,
those are the three legs of the American justice system: habeas
right,
corpus, due process, and the presumption of innocence.
right. And let me just say the names of the three kids killed: James Chaney, 21-year-old black man from Meridian, Mississippi,
Hmm.
member of Congress for Racial Equality. Andrew Goodman joined the Freedom Summer Project. It's his first time in Mississippi. And then Michael Schwerner, white man from New York, also a member of the Congress for Racial Equal Justice, field organizer, deeply involved in voter registration, community activism in Mississippi.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, Mississippi Burning, we talked about it being such a great movie. I think that it is also a road mark for those of us who want to know how do things get better. Activists in the South to end well, they didn't end racism, but to end systemic racism, but to end institutionalized racism, to end
Segregation and yeah.
segregation, Jim Crow, the government's establishment of that stuff got people to organize and to vote. And here we are, habeas corpus, which threatens every person, right? If the idea is that a police officer can just hold you, doesn't need probable cause, doesn't need to put you in front of a judge, they can just hold you. That threatens everybody.
Yeah.
So
And
hopefully that's a
it's
start
not
to,
even that they need to put you in the county jail. If if you're trying to get rid of political opponents, exile them. Send them to Libya, send them to El Salvador, send them to Venezuela, send them to any other country, with a detention system. You
exactly.
send them to Tehran for, the world famous Evin prison. There's history is replete with moving people out of country to keep them away, or moving them, like
Right.
with Russia. It was moving Ukrainians into Kazakhstan and Kazakhstanis into Estonia, Russians into each of those countries just to give them a Russian population. Um, it moving people and displacing them without any rights is a hallmark of a authoritarian regime, and just
Right. It's
it's a
everything that,
scary time.
yeah, it is. Right. And that's the thing about it is we're talking about this the other day. So I live in a relatively rural place. And to get to my house, there's only uh, 10 other households for like the last 3 miles if you would drive
Yeah.
to get to my house. And I was driving and coming home, sheriff car started following me. And, like anybody, if a police car starts following you, you're, oh, what am I doing? And,
Shit.
I do sort of have a brake light that's a little iffy. So, my solution was to not brake all the way home. No, I'm just kidding. But it was frightening. And that's in a country where I'm supposed to be guaranteed, you know, the rights of habeas corpus, the rights of due process.
Yeah.
Imagine what it's like outside, right? Imagine if you were in El Salvador right now or Iran and you're driving and there's a police car following you, how frightened you would be. Even if you hadn't done anything wrong, you don't know if you've done anything wrong.
I mean,
Those sort of levels of dictatorships are filled with stories of people who are at the top of political power and then they're arrested and disappeared for forever.
yeah. Well, I mean, and I don't like JD Vance, but he does point out that even places like England where you post something, I half the stuff I post on Facebook, I'd probably get arrested for just because I'm shit
Right.
post. But you know, one day you're just Joe Schmo on the internet, the next day you're arrested for posting something because somebody got hurt. Now, I think most of the stuff is for like the UKIP stuff, but I'm not going to be a racist on the internet, but um,
Right. But
I
but
mean,
it
but
is
it's there, like it's there
it
that
is
they
troubling.
can
Well,
come after you.
and it's interesting because you have seen those hate crime laws work the other way, where there's a great footage of conservatives out in force, and they're protesting. They've got signs, and a woman who is liberal and it's a liberal cause uh, yells at one of them and says, "You're only like that because you're a F word." She says the F word. And they have the police come over and arrest her because you can't use that word in angry speech in England anymore.
Yeah,
That's wrong. But it is,
I mean it happens, and I don't want that system either. I mean,
right,
I would rather, um, not that I want people using that word in speech, but I'd rather them get canceled over using that than arrested. Like that's where I'm at. People use cancellation as a bad thing, but cancellation really it's the market speaking. If you say something untoward and you lose your job because of it, that's the market speaking. That's the market saying, "Hey, you probably shouldn't be in this position because you deal with the public all day." And by using that word, you're causing irreparable harm to the trust of your customers, um, because you're inherently biased against your customer, for some trait that you don't agree with. I
right.
get that. Cancellation's fine. Again, that's the market speaking. Government enforced cancellation, now that's where I have an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And I guess the most galling thing about it, like, I expect that there's 10% of the population that are stupid or are blindly devoted to this happening. But to see people who I think are smart try to defend this
Yes.
travesty, right? To see the Solicitor General of the United States try to explain why he thinks these people shouldn't get due process.
Oh my
It's just
god.
crazy.
So, I mean, yeah, we can talk about that, though. So, 7-2 decision by the Supreme Court. It's not a complete victory, but it is the Supreme Court sending it back to lower courts about the, alien, well, I can't remember exactly what the name of that law is, but it's the one that they're using a wartime power to
Right,
deport, quote unquote illegal aliens from the United States without due process, just sending them out. Um,
right. The Aliens Enemy Act,
Alien Enemy Act,
right,
yeah,
is being used to deport people from Venezuela
yeah,
specifically.
and without due process, I mean, without even consulting anybody, they're just loaded up on a plane and sent out. Um, so 7-2 decision. Amy Comey Barrett joins the majority.
Yep.
Justice Roberts, the Chief Justice Roberts, joins the majority. I think it's only
I mean, for
Scalia, or not Scalia, but Thomas and
Thomas and
yeah.
Scalia's ghost.
Yeah. But
Scalia's
yeah,
ghost,
only
which had
the rock-ribs
possessed.
conservatives.
Yeah,
Yes, I am very
possessed.
congested today. Sorry about
That's all right.
that.
It's interesting because the Coney Barrett has been taking all sorts of grief from
Yeah.
MAGA as well.
Well,
And go ahead.
did you see the State of the Union, or whatever they called it? It was not quite the State of the Union because it was his first one, but the joint presidential address to both houses of Congress.
Yes.
So at the beginning, he comes in and of course, he glad hands everybody on the way in.
Yep.
He gets to the Supreme Court justices and he skips Amy Coney Barrett, and
Wow.
she shoots him this look that
I did not see that.
probably at this point would get her sent to El Salvador at this point. So, yeah, there is no. It's strange because she was the ideologue that he put on the court,
Yep.
and she's ruled several times against the
Several
president.
times.
She's come in solid form in a couple of different cases, including the
And
one with.
what's fascinating is, and so what is MAGA world saying about her? DEI hire.
Yeah, a DEI hire.
Right?
Well,
They're criticizing her because she's a woman, right? And that's where they always go back to. That's what MAGA always falls back
Yep,
on.
Daryl.
This idea that women, people of color, Jews, right? They're all ruining the country by demanding equal rights and equal
Yeah,
access.
they didn't get their positions on merit. They got
Exactly.
their positions because of either the color of their skin, the content of, their
Yeah. And yet,
sexual,
right,
organs,
exactly.
whatever.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. I hope that that's not going to come out. That I worry about what the smear campaign against Amy Coney Barrett, who I'm happy to call ECB. I'm worried that there's going to be a conservative smear campaign against her, and it's
Oh, I'm
going to be
sure.
ugly. I think it's probably going to be anti-Catholic because she is hardcore Catholic,
Yeah.
and that's where they always go. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
about to get worse with the Pope.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's gonna get worse, and beware. I fell for it this week. You're seeing all these quotes out there about the Pope saying woke. He has not said woke.
Yep.
Um, just buyer beware. It was a good quote though. I did like the quote. Um,
Right.
but yeah, it's Amy Coney Barrett. Like people are saying she's kind of the defender of democracy at this point. Like if it comes down to things like abortion rights and things like that, I wouldn't trust Amy Coney Barrett.
No.
But I think we might see the way that she's being treated, that she will be much more on the side of
Yeah.
not allowing extreme presidential power. She
Well,
failed when it came to the decision on my birthday last year to allow the president to have pretty much extreme executive authority.
right.
And the only thing that would be able to stop him is an impeachment, which is essentially impossible at this point. They failed there, and I think they realized they failed at that point.
Well, I mean, it comes to an interesting point, but you know, in retrospect, all three of Trump's appointees voted against him,
Yes, they have.
and it's fascinating because I mean, for Gorsuch, people who sort of in the libertarian space, we knew a fair bit about Gorsuch, and we thought he wasn't a bad appointee. We're like, this guy's a strict constitutionalist. That isn't going to be good for some things because there are places where some people might say, well, we wish the federal government did have a little more power here. And he was going to be a strict constitutionalist in that space. On the other hand, he has been remarkably consistent in terms of his interpretation of the Constitution. Yeah, I agree with you, Chuck. I think Gorsuch is the best justice on the Supreme Court right now.
Not a high bar, but yeah.
Right, exactly.
I mean, the bar's underground a little bit, but yeah.
Right. That being said, I mean, Roberts is an interesting case
I
as
think
well.
Roberts relishes the idea of being that wild card. Like that's the most powerful position on the court, and it's harder with having 6 conservative justices on the court, but he's
Well,
been able to exercise that wild card role a few times.
and what's interesting about it too is you think about it, right? He's a George Bush appointee,
Yeah,
um, and he wasn't on the court before. He goes into the role of Supreme Court
chief.
Justice, of Chief
Yeah, chief
Justice,
justice. Yeah,
as opposed to what many people might think might happen. But so here, Bush appoints this guy who, honestly, in the biggest, I mean, I think the biggest ruling of his life is going to be the ACA, where essentially he
yeah.
ruled that the ACA was constitutional. I mean, look, libertarians, we all think this is a terrible decision, but he sided with the Democrats.
Yep.
And it just goes to show you that that's why we have a system like that, where we appoint judges and we make them independent so that they can vote their mind. I think every Democrat would have to agree that Gorsuch, uh, our man, I can't think of his, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett are not rubber stamps for Trump.
Which is, I mean, if Trump gets the ability to appoint another justice,
Right,
it's probably going to be to replace somebody like Thomas or
right,
Alito.
right. And it would probably, right, which is a neutral, right? I mean,
Yeah, I
that's a
mean that's
wash.
you're not going to lose. You're not
No,
changing the balance. Now,
I think
if Kagan or
yeah,
Ketanji Brown or
right. I mean, Kagan is older, uh, but she
she's
seems to
not
be
she's
relatively good
not.
health. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean
knock on wood.
yeah uh yeah it's not like a super health crisis like when Trump came to office in 2016 and Ruth Bader
RGB should have
Ginsburg just
retired. It's
yeah she
unbelievable.
should have well, you also had the issue with not being able to get anyone beyond the Senate with Merrick Garland being nominated too.
Well,
So
but in the first 2 years of Obama's administration, they
yeah, there
couldn't
was
find
lots of
somebody.
pressure for her to step down. Yeah.
Yeah, she resisted it.
Yep.
You have to say, and that's the thing is that you have to say that that does tarnish her a little bit, at least in my eyes. There are lots of things you can point to the notorious RGB about, but much like an aging rock star, she didn't realize
Well, I
what was
mean,
in
just
front of
like
her in time.
Biden.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, just
exactly.
like Biden, you didn't take the hint. You didn't get out of the way,
Right. And there
and
aren't enough people telling you it's got to go because the Democratic Party is an organization of sycophants where
yeah,
people just keep praising the leadership and expect everybody else to treat them like demigods. The
eh,
oldest justice right now is Clarence Thomas,
yeah.
76. Alito is 75. Sotomayor is 70. I didn't realize she was so old. She's older than Roberts, who's
Wow.
also
Well,
70.
Roberts was a young dude when he
He was a young
got
dude.
the gig. He was like in the mid 40s, I think.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Um,
I bet you there's a lot of pressure on Roberts to retire.
yeah, I don't think he would.
Uh, I don't think you would either because I mean you realize how important it is. And again, you figure like right, Trump has said that his next Supreme Court appointee is going to be Laura Loomer. So
God.
I mean they
Yeah.
got the votes to get her in.
Yeah,
So
they do. I mean, they could
they
force
can get
anyone
anybody. Yep.
down the throats of the Democrats at this point.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I mean, you could yeah, anybody who doesn't even have I mean, who has never been legally trained in any what manner whatsoever can get
Right.
put into the Supreme Court. And I will say, thank God that the Biden administration didn't go forward on the idea because
Expanding the court.
of expanding the court because that would
Right.
have been an absolute disaster.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
yeah,
That's
we could have added 5 more Supreme Court justices, but that's just 5 more chances that Trump would be able to nominate more people to the court.
well. Trump would then feel he had carte blanche to nominate 20 more.
Yeah,
To add 20 more.
exactly. I always say that, when they talked about what Trump did with the 3 Supreme Court justices in his first term, that was directly a result of the Democrats waiving uh, the 60 vote rule on judges back during the Obama years.
Yep.
Um, and
Yeah.
I'd
Every
say
time.
people create the cudgels with which they're eventually beaten, and the Democrats certainly did when it came to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, absolutely true. And the Republicans told them, if you do this, we're gonna. And so
Yeah,
it is. There's no question about it.
it's
Every
just like
time you
the
weaken, and in many ways, you can argue that that's leading up to this part, where we are now weakening the other protections in government. Of
yes,
you know, the size of the Supreme Court is not codified anywhere. Habeas corpus is, due process is, but the idea that you can weaken the protections of government to make the government be able to bypass the checks and balances, that's a real problem. And so
yeah,
here, this is an extension of that.
yep, yeah, but and good on the court for starting to
And
rein this stuff in.
yeah, and I just want to
Whether
say too.
the Trump administration listens to the court is a whole other thing. Although there were some very pointed questions during that and and,
Yep.
was it Sotomayor or Kagan? I think it was Kagan that, really kinda painted the administration into a corner, and I think it revealed some strains that might come down because I think the idea where it comes to protections for due process and habeas corpus, I think Trump fans are like, "Well, they're doing it for the people that I don't like, so it's okay." But,
Right. Right.
you
And
know,
Sotomayor.
eventually they're gonna get to a point where they're gonna do something that you don't like the Second Amendment. Let's say somebody takes a shot at Trump again, or takes a shot at one of his kids, or takes a shot at Vance.
Yep.
Then he's let's say he does an executive order to ban guns, to ban, handguns or whatever.
Right.
Without those legal protections, now the thing that you are, that you're most, you know, uh, protective of when it comes to the Constitution. I know a lot of people here in West Virginia are very much about their gun rights, very much Second Amendment friendly. Um,
Yeah.
now you're in the target zone of the president without any legal protections.
Yeah. We we're talking about, the same colossal failure that always happens. And the thing about it is like, we talked about Obama, the Democrats under Obama, getting rid of the filibuster for judicial appointments. And their argument was there are all these judges' seats that are empty, and as a result, there's this backlog in the courts. But you know what? Obama could have ended the war on drugs and cleared
Yeah,
the courts, right?
absolutely.
It is a constant mirage of bullshit from both sides where they say we have to have this reason to do
It's a
this.
crisis.
That's right, exactly. As Gary Johnson said, we are kept in a perpetual state of emergency crisis and perpetual war to justify an unending assault on the rights of individuals.
Well,
That's
we talked
exactly
about it
what it
last
is.
week when we talked about fear, using fear in politics. You
Yep,
use that fear to gin up the masses to this supposed, whether it's the invasion of quote unquote illegal aliens, or school shootings, or hell, we use it for the debt ceiling. We use it for everything. The government shutdown. We use all of these things to make ourselves fear someone else,
right,
that someone else is going to get an advantage over you for
right,
some damned odd reason. um and we've allowed it to cloud our rights and our responsibilities when it comes to being American citizens, that we're more than happy to give up those essential liberties for that moment of safety from the quote unquote safety from the federal government.
right. Yep, it's true. Sad.
It is. It is. Um, let's see. We're in the second period, and the Maple Leafs and the Panthers are scoreless in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals.
Yeah. I think we should talk a little bit about Trump in the Middle East
Yeah.
and
Trump
go ahead.
Well, yeah, Trump has been on a tour of the Middle East. He went to, Saudi Arabia. He's been in Qatar, however you wanna say it. Um, where else has he gone? He's met with the, leader of
Syrians.
Syria,
Yep.
who was
Eh,
once on the, most wanted terrorist list, um, as an Al Qaeda operative. Um, he received a $400 million plane from the Qatari government,
Right.
to replace Air Force One. Not a good idea. I mean, again, I'm not gonna say that the Qataris are the ones who are going to spy on them, but remember that the Qataris also use lots and lots of migrant labor.
Well, yeah, I
Um,
mean, first, right, exactly. The Qatar is definitely a terrible, oppressive government, even though they are, one of the best American allies,
yeah,
at least
they're an ally, but
militarily.
they yeah,
Yeah, but the best example of this would be right, whatever beep brigade is. They have a good name for it now, but I can't remember. Right, all those beepers came from Taiwan or wherever they were made. But in reality, right, they had all sorts of they had explosive put into them by the IDF
yeah, yeah, I remember
or
that,
the
yeah.
Mossad. So they can't know what this plane is, what's in this plane. So that's part of the problem. But the other big part of the problem is the Saudis and the other Arab nations, the other Arab oil nations, have woken up to the fact that they're at the end. They're at the end of oil being a really important resource in the world. It's there, but you see technology coming online that
Yeah.
drastically reduces Americans' need on oil, LED, heat pump, uh, electric cars, renewable energy, that sort of thing. And so now they've got this wealth, and they're like, well, if we want to maintain this standard of living, we have to buy the stuff that we don't have, which is influence.
Yep.
And they've started to do it through a series of things. Um, what we might sometimes call, well, what is being called sometimes sports washing, right?
Yes.
The first part of it.
The live
Right, the live
tournaments.
golf,
Yeah.
which is for people who
The
don't know, and I'm going to assume that everybody on this list, because they're libertarian, A, doesn't know what golf is, and B, doesn't know about the live tournament, the live organization. So golf is a game that Mark Twain described as a good walk spoiled. It's where you
It's called golf because all other four-letter words were taken.
exactly right. It's where four men try to hit a ball into a hole with tools that were not designed for that purpose. Um,
Yeah.
that being said, there are now two big golf tours. There's the PGA, which has been the tour for forever, and there's a new one called Live, which is financed by the Saudis.
Yep.
And there's
And
bigger
what
money.
and the Saudis like to use, especially in the United States tournaments, they like to use Trump golf courses
Exactly.
for their tournaments.
They use Trump golfers for the tournament, and they also behead reporters,
This is
right?
true.
Let's talk about that part of it too. That here we are cozying up to the Saudis, who, yeah, Phil Mickelson
Yes,
did indeed
Mickelson
sign with
did.
them,
Yep.
and a few other,
Yeah, lots of big names. I think, Bubba Watson and a few other big names
yeah,
have signed on to the tour.
right. But there is and we'll get back around to Kamal Khashoggi in a second. But the Saudis are terrible on human rights by anybody's measure. And, maybe they've gotten a little bit better, but one of the great experiences for me was when Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, went to Saudi Arabia on diplomatic missions, and they had to deal with her.
That's true, Daryl.
It was, yeah, exactly. He was completely dismembered. Um, and I said Kamal, but I know it's Jamal.
Jamal
Uh,
Khashoggi. Yeah.
the Saudis still have terrible restrictions on the rights of women, terrible restrictions, terrible caste society, and they are a monarchy, right?
Yeah.
This guy who we're talking about now, who
Mohammed bin
Trump,
Salman, the
yep,
yeah.
yep, MSB or MBS,
MBS. He's the crown
Crown
prince.
Prince,
King Salman is leader in title only. I mean, there's been rumors that he's had a massive stroke and he's just kind of there
right?
until he dies. The interesting thing about Mohammed bin Salman is that he's the first of the new generation of. So the way that the Saudi monarchy is passed down, it was from brother to brother. Um, this is the first time they've actually gone down a level from the Ibn Saud, the
Right.
founder of Saudi
Founder of Saudi
Arabia.
Arabia,
His sons ran it until and well, still technically run it with King Salman. Mohammed bin Salman is the first of this new generation of Saudi leaders, um, and we'll see how that goes. But Mohammed bin Salman did a lot of things before the Saudi government. When he first got into power, like detaining all of the other princes and people who had a little claim on the royal throne and kind of strong arm them out of the way. So he'll be the next king once King Salman
right?
leaves this mortal coil.
Right.
Oh, one
Yeah,
nothing Panthers.
I bet it was. It
Let's
can't be
see.
Kachuk.
It
Trying
was
to think.
Seth Jones
Interesting.
from
That would.
Evan Rodriguez and Alexander Barkov at 3:15 of the second period.
All right. Um, yeah, exactly. There are people who want to look up more about MBS. You should look up the 2017 purge, where he essentially had about 20 businessmen, princes, competition, all arrested,
Yeah.
and then sort of, they were
Basically, they were told they were held in a hotel, and they were told to,
yeah,
if you want to leave this hotel ever, you got to sign away your rights to
right,
to to the throne. And by and large, they did. They got to pay out, because that is the Saudi way to give a lot of money and throw it around. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And so here we are. All the stuff is known. The Trump administration, when Khashoggi is killed, uh, is active, involved in the fact of recognizing that this is a was done by the Saudi intelligence services under the direct orders of MBS,
yes,
and they condemn him. Trump condemns him, and yet here we are, all's forgiven, and we're making nice again. The it's it's disappointing. Two
oh, two
nothing.
nothing, 2-0. Thanks for the live
Wow.
update, Ken. Yeah, I mean, uh, it happened during the first Trump administration in 2018 when he was taken in Istanbul, taken to the Saudi embassy there, and he was dismembered in the embassy.
He was lured in, told that he had to come into the embassy to get a piece of paper so that he could marry his wife.
Yeah,
And they told him he had to go into the embassy. And lots of people told him, don't go into the embassy.
he actually had his phone on him and recorded,
Yep.
and
And
that's how they knew what happened to him. Is I guess they
yep.
found his phone or something.
Well,
Um,
it's also, I think it's come out since the Turkish intelligence had bugged the embassy.
oh, well, there you
Uh,
go.
in fact, Erdogan, right, who is a generally terrible guy as well,
Yeah,
came out and said that the Saudis had done all this stuff and revealed the sources of their intelligence. And so here we are in this crazy scenario where now the United States is making nice with all of these countries that But
Oh
that
yeah.
we shouldn't be.
I mean, yeah, you're right. Sports washing. You saw the Qataris had the
The World Cup.
2020 World Cup. The Saudis will actually get the 2032 World Cup, the one after the United States and Mexico and Canada. So they've
Yep.
already got that. Um, yeah, they're using their influence, and they're you know you can make the case on the Saudis starting to loosen up some of the restrictions on women in their country. They're allowed to drive now, but still, it's not great. Like it's not
Yeah.
there's still things where women aren't allowed to be in public by themselves.
They
Um,
can't get a divorce on their own.
yeah,
You can't. They have to have their husband's permission to
yeah,
get a divorce. All sorts of just crazy shit.
yeah,
Um, and the United States used to stand up for these sort of things, and now we don't. And so I don't know what's going
yeah.
to
I
happen.
mean, we have turned a blind eye to our allies. Well, at least even especially during the Cold War, we would turn a blind eye to the happenings within countries of our allies. But the thing is, for the most part, those stories never made the news because there wasn't a 24-hour news cycle during the Cold War.
Right.
That we didn't really find out the atrocities of, say, Siad Barre in Somalia, or even Saddam Hussein. Like Halabja wasn't really a thing until we became an enemy of Iraq. That was
Exactly.
um, we did turn a blind eye. So, Dan's got the reversed image there.
Oh, is it
Flo
reversed?
Rida. It is
Oh,
on my screen. Yes,
let's see if I can fix that.
Flo Rida is up 2-0. Anton Lundell with an assist from Itu Losterainen and Brad Marchand.
Oh, that's wrong.
Now that's
Oh,
I'm getting a little sick now.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, um, you know, I get the want for, because I think they're using money to kind of pay for influence, and to um I mean, how do I say it?
I mean,
It's easier. Oh God, is it 3-0? It is 3-0.
right there. Look at that.
Yona Gadjevich.
Yeah, that's a sweet little goal.
Oh my goodness. You know, we'll talk a little bit more about the Maple Leafs and the Game 7 woes, but yeah. Yeah, get Marco's dictatorship was we liked him until we didn't. Same with Noriega in Panama. We liked him until we didn't. Um offside maybe on that goal. All right. We'll check it out. Um but yeah, they're using their money to kind of buy a shortcut into um, being seen as
Right.
happy, friendly people.
Well, and the
And
thing is they're doing the stuff that they see Americans doing to succeed, right? Because they see Americans doing that, and as a result, they're like, "Oh, that's what it is." And there's a funny joke that when the FBI accused the Russians of trying to influence the elections in 2016, there was a meme that went around that said, showed Vladimir Putin. It said, "If I want to influence American politics, I make donation to Clinton Foundation," which is true because the Saudis donate the fuck to the Clinton Foundation,
oh,
and they
sure.
have done for a
I
long
mean,
time.
it's like, so if you ever look at uh, funding of political campaigns, it, I did this research for a couple of Georgia State Senate campaigns. You
Yep.
will see campaigns giving the same money to candidates, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, or in a
Yep.
primary, whether if there's like 5 Republicans, each of those Republicans get money. They
Right.
it's funded from what they call good governance funds, and it's essentially to hedge their bets so that when so and so gets elected, no matter who gets elected, they've got a foot in the door with them. Oh, we lost your
Oh,
audio
sorry.
there.
You look at that point. You look at the way big tech is sucking Trump's toes,
Oh yeah,
uh, but they'd always given him money, and that's how he knew that they would.
yeah. I mean, we are in a pay for play uh,
Yep, that's exactly where it is.
system right now.
And there's never been a bigger pay for play president. And
No,
I watched an interesting with
just look at Trump coin.
yep, I watched a fascinating interview with Whitney Cummings. I don't know if people know who she is. She's a comedian. Um, and she was on a show with a couple comedians, including uh, one of my current favorite crowd work guy, Akash Singh. If you haven't seen him, he
Oh
is
God, I love Akash Singh. Yeah.
he's so funny. She's on a show with him, and they're like, "Tell us what happened at the roast for Trump." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm happy to tell you about it." She's like, "I was there, and we had a limit of off. Everybody gets an off limit or off things that you can't talk about. Uh, and on Trump's list, you can't make jokes about Melania." She's like, "I had 4 pages of Melania jokes. I was gonna not do them, and it's live." So I get up there, and my first joke is, Donald, you never should have bought Melania that giant diamond because now she knows what hard really is. Good joke. Everybody laughs. Trump laughs. And she goes on. She's just ripping him. She's like, and I'm giving it to him both barrels. Just, these cringe jokes. And he's laughing along with it. And afterwards, we get off stage and he comes up to me and he puts his hand on the small of my back and he says, "That was hilarious. And it was great television." And Akash Singh said, "Yeah, but that guy gets it." And Whitney's like, 100%. That guy is, among the best entertainers in the world. He understands what works in entertainment. And, here we are in this scenario where because we haven't had real leadership, really good leadership. I mean, I don't know. Obama, seemed like a decent guy, but certainly problems in the administration. But so many things in the American system of government have been for sale that here we are, in the absolute uh, worst scenario where we have a government for sale.
Well, it's because we didn't speak up when those things were happening. We were, and I'm using the royal
You know
we
what,
here.
Dave? I wish that we'd been members of the Libertarian Party because those guys were fighting back in the day.
They were, yeah. But uh, as a people, the royal we didn't speak up during those abuses because they weren't
Yep,
like big abuses. They weren't like Watergate or anything like that. There were smaller things, but
yep,
they accumulate over time, and the less you speak up about them, it just allows the government to take more and more power. The executive is always going to seek more and more power, and now you've got somebody who's using all the levers of power to, essentially enrich himself. The Trump coin is I couldn't imagine if George W. Bush had done a George W. Bush coin, or even Obama had done an Obama coin.
God,
The screeching that would have happened, but
yeah,
the UAE dumped $2 billion into the Trump coin. You don't think they're going to get something off of that?
right. It's insane, right? I mean, what they're going to get off is they're going to lose $2 billion because the Trump coin is eventually going to be worthless. But
No, they're getting access though.
yeah,
They'll get
exactly.
government contract, and they're going to get, if something happens in the UAE, and UAE is more one of the more quote unquote liberal of the Arab countries.
Right.
Um, but if something happens where there's and there are human rights violations that do happen,
For sure.
um, that's going to get ignored. They're never going to get put on a uh, human rights list under the Trump administration because they've got this $2 billion. We
Exactly.
gave Trump $2 billion. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And the thing is that it went straight into his pocket. And the funny thing about it is that back in the day when I was a crypto defender, and I actually am still a crypto defender. But the problem, but there's a different thing about it. I didn't. People used to say, "Well, it's going to be amazing for money laundering because there's no receipt, etc." And yet, I used to argue, well, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, money laundering is money laundering. There's plenty of ways that people do it. Crypto doesn't make it any easier or better.
I I hate when I launder money because that those coins rattling around in the dryer just fucking
Sure,
drive me nuts.
exactly right. On the other hand, there's a lot of things that you can do. Let's just say if you really did want to launder money, uh, you know, open up a software as a service company, right? Let people buy software from you or whatever, or consulting, or in the old days, pizzerias, right? The mob used to run pizzerias because it was very easy to say, oh, yeah, we sold, $1 million in pizza over the last year. People paid
Yeah.
cash. That's where we got this $1 million from. It's really
Yep.
easy to launder money when in reality they were getting it from extortion or rackets or pay for service or privilege or anything like that. Blockbuster video. It was a very common thing for people to buy
Car
Blockbuster
wash,
TVs.
yeah.
Yeah, car wash, exactly right. That's Breaking Bad. That sort of thing. It is exactly, John. It's like that.
Working
It,
at
I,
the
I
car
and
wash.
I didn't think that money laundering was a bad thing because I didn't think the government had any right to do it. And you can make an argument that we know what's happening. People don't care, right? And that's the question about it, right? My argument was that why is money laundering illegal? Why can't you just have income and your money, and the government doesn't get to ask you where it came from? I don't think that's a legitimate purpose of government to say, where did you get all this money? I don't have to justify where I got money from. Now, that
Now,
being
I
said,
mean,
go ahead.
here's my ignorance coming through, but could they claim it because the dollar is created by the federal government, that it's their money?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that, and we're lucky enough to have a couple lawyers on here and they can talk about it. But I think that the question as to why the government gets to know what you do with all your money, and there's still a lot of that, right? If you
Taxes.
make a deposit of more than $10,000, uh, your bank declares it to the IRS. If you send a Venmo for more than $600, that gets sent to the IRS,
Yeah.
which is a
And
whole bunch.
if you, structure payments, which, like, if you're doing, like,
Yeah,
deposits of under
$9,000 a month.
$10,000,
Yep,
yeah, then you're gonna get visited by the IRS. Well, probably not as much now with all the IRS folks getting fired, but,
right,
yeah,
exactly,
it will trigger, you there have been businesses that have been put under the scope for structuring
right,
because they make $9,000 and they take it to the
right,
bank, they put it in the bank, and then there's kind of a consistent cash flow that they have for them.
right,
Yeah,
and
I
and
mean,
so right. And so, right, exactly. Now, so John makes an excellent point. What happens now if this thing that happens now becomes the rationale for the government to say, we're going to monitor every crypto transaction?
yeah,
And if you're going to do a crypto transaction, the United States government gets to know who sent money to whom, right? Maybe it is. I still say to myself, like, and I said this in 2016 when he was running for president. There could be nothing better for the Democrats than Donald Trump being the nominee because he will unify such an authoritarian Democratic government and majority. And now, I mean, I am very fearful that's going to happen, right? The worst thing that could possibly happen in 2028 is there are no elections. The second worst thing is the Democrats sweep everything. I mean, I don't know. To undo some of the shit that's happened, I think that they're going to have that. Maybe not. I don't know. But
well, I mean, that's the worry is that, I will support any Democratic candidate who comes out and says, "My first acts as president is to work with Congress to roll back some of the powers that have been bestowed upon the presidency that shouldn't be there."
Right.
The power of executive orders, except, maybe we have a specific parameters about what an executive order can and can't do.
Right.
War declarations and the assignment of troops
Yeah.
has to be a congressional declaration. These are things that we need to roll back from the presidency that Congress has abdicated over
Right.
the last several decades.
Right. And, to answer John's question about the government buying into crypto that's not their currency, I mean, the government has done that already, right?
Oh
You
yeah,
could be trading in foreign currency. Crypto is no different to the government right now than foreign currency, in terms of, whether or not they feel like they have the right to know where it's happening.
yeah.
But
If
if
you don't
you
think the
have
NSA is trying to do that right now, then
Exactly. And
yeah,
in fact, there was a huge thing going on that even if you were living overseas, the IRS was claiming the right to audit your bank accounts, et cetera, to see how much money you actually were making when you filed your taxes, and to audit your spouse's account, even if that person wasn't an American citizen.
wow,
So that came up with Giselle for a while, where the government was claiming that they had the right to, go through her bank accounts, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah,
Um, anyway, government sucks.
it
Trump makes it
does.
worse. Um, and, I do occasionally think maybe Russia and Ukraine will go nuclear and that'll be the end of it all. I
Yeah,
don't have to
well,
worry
that's
about
just
this anymore.
yeah, sweet meteor of death.
Speaking of which, those guys did meet, right? The Ukrainians and the Russians
It
met.
wasn't Putin and Zelensky, but
It
it was,
wasn't Putin and Zelensky. And apparently the
Zelensky met
Russians
with
were
JD
making,
Vance. They shared a
right.
couch.
It looked like a very happy meeting. JD Vance
Yeah.
told him, "Look, Trump's crazy. I'm sorry for what happened last time. He's just a dick."
I mean,
Um,
well, JD was the dick in that meeting, really. I mean, Trump was
yeah,
JD was the main dick in that meeting.
right.
He
Because
didn't even say thank you once.
people feel like they have to show up for Trump because Trump rewards it when you defend him, when you do stuff that he likes. If you leave him
Yeah,
alone, then he blames you for not stepping in.
yeah.
So for sure, hopefully, I mean, it looked like it was an ample meeting.
Well, except
I
for
think,
except for old Marco Rubio just kind of sinking into the couch during that meeting. That was kind of I if he had sunk into that couch any further, JD Vance would have fucked him.
yeah, that's pretty funny. Hopefully, hopefully, Trump administration has sort of realized that the Russians are not being honest players here, and the only way they
Yeah.
will be honest players
I
is if
don't but
they.
I don't think Trump cares.
I, I think that he cares a little bit in terms of personal prestige. The fact that he said he was going to be able to deliver a deal, uh, and if you think about it, right, what is Trump doing in Gaza, right? I don't think anybody seriously thinks Trump thinks that Gaza is going to be owned by Americans, which is what he's saying. But he's doing that as sort of a negotiation tactic to
Oh,
say, look
yeah.
how much worse it could be. And so, maybe that's part of it. Maybe, there's a point where Trump says, okay, we're actually going to go back and we're going to give Ukraine all the goods, right? All the nuclear weapons, everything. And the Russians are like, all right, let's make peace now. I don't think the Russians will ever agree to give Crimea back. So we're gonna have to
I
figure
mean,
out what the best solution for that is. But I think the best solution is a ceasefire right now, and then potentially free elections in the places where they are. I know that it's not necessarily what the Ukrainians want, especially since they've been doing Russification in those areas.
yeah.
Um,
Well, and there's been a large loss of Ukrainian populations in those areas, so,
Absolutely, absolutely.
you
Not to
know.
mention the 20,000 children that the Russians kidnapped.
Yep.
That's been well documented as
Yeah,
well.
and John's putting up a good point here. You know, you are seeing a buildup of troops I don't know if Finland is the ultimate aim for where they're putting their troops. I still think they won't move on Finland, but if they wanted to move on something, it would be Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Because
Yeah,
they,
but those are,
I mean, they're NATO allies.
yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. I would be concerned. Finland joined NATO, so they uh, wherever they attack, whether it's Sweden, they could attack Norway. Well, Norway's a NATO member as well, so yeah, they're anywhere they attack on the Scandinavian peninsula, they wouldn't be able to get
Well,
away
it's
from
interesting
NATO's attack.
because I don't know if you saw, but Sweden has recently appointed the former head of IKEA to be in charge of their navy. Uh,
Oh, they'll
and
never be able to build that.
well, what's interesting about it is one of the things they're doing. They have a larger force for all the nations, all the former Viking nations, and they're putting barcodes on all the ships so they can Scandinavian.
Mm, damn it! All
Oh
right,
boy, that
you
was a
ready for
long
the
way to get into
quiz?
that joke, but I'm ready for the quiz. Yes.
Let's do the quiz. It is still 3-0, 3:12 left in the second period. For the time is running out for the Toronto Maple Leafs once again in Game 7, which has always been a house of horrors for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Game 7, they've lost several of those in a row. Usually in the first round, they've made it at the second round, but um, good on them for actually forcing the Game 7. They could have just melted away into the night, but it looks like they're waiting for their traditional Game 7 melt away,
Yeah.
um, which leaves one Canadian team left in the playoffs. That is the Edmonton
When you're
Oilers.
a jet, all the way from
The
your first
Jets are
cigarette to
done
your
too.
last dying day. Yeah,
Yeah, Jets got smoked last night by Dallas in overtime to end that
right.
series.
But
So
they're not done yet.
no, they are done.
What?
Yeah, the Jets are done.
Well, the Jets lost, were swept out.
Yeah,
Oh,
they it was 4-2 in that series. Um,
apparently, I lost track. You know what?
so
Again, like I said, once the Bruins are out, I don't care anymore.
all
I did
right.
see a little bit because of the Caps, but
Yeah, I mean it was nice to watch the Caps. They got through that first round. They just don't. I don't know.
well,
I didn't trust them all season, so I didn't think.
I'm ready for
I think they were
Ovechkin.
doing a lot of things to get Ovechkin to that
Yeah,
record.
I'm ready for Ovechkin to go serve on the front lines.
All
All right, let's
right,
do
the
the quiz, baby.
5 things news quiz. We've got Pete Rose,
Yeah, we know that
um,
news.
Donald Trump talking to Arab folks, and which building is that?
I
That
don't
looked like
know.
one of one of the Washington buildings. I don't know.
It did.
All right. Question number 1. The Qatari royal family has offered Donald Trump which of the following expensive gifts? An armored Rolls Royce, a luxury jet to replace Air Force One, a penthouse apartment in Doha, or the Millennium Star Diamond?
They should have given him the diamond because it's cheaper than Air Force One, and
Diamond.
you would know whether or not it was bugged.
This is
But of
true.
course, Brandy's got it right. It's the plane.
Brandy's got it right. Way to go, Brandy. Yeah, I mean, probably all of the above, as
Right.
Ken said, but Brandy's got it right. It's the plane. They're also committing to a $5 billion Trump resort in Qatar.
Yep. And
More
a
emoluments.
diamond, an ass plug made out of diamonds
You
for
know, no king
whatever he
shaming.
wants.
Question number 2. Which Marvel star got engaged in Paris this week? Simu Liu, Florence Pugh, Brie Larson, or Chris Evans? I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm going to guess Florence Pugh, but I don't know. I think Chris Evans uh, is never going to settle down.
I mean, if you look like Chris Evans, would you ever settle down?
Exactly.
I
I mean, right. Play the field. Brandy says Chris Evans. That's wishful thinking, Brandy. Um,
I'm thinking Brie Larson, but
it could be Brie Larson, but then I question the word star. That's not fair.
Damn, that's
Um,
rough, man.
yeah,
Shots fired.
I don't know.
Heidi
Heidi
says
says Brie
Larson.
Larson as well. My guess is Florence Pugh, but I have no idea. Let's take one more suggestion from the audience.
One more suggestion from the gallery.
Yeah, I know that.
Oh, Evans.
Oh,
All right, let's
all
do
right, we
Evans.
got two. We got two for Chris Evans. Let's go, Chris Evans.
No, it is Simu Liu.
Interesting. He
Simu Liu and Allison Sue announced their engagement in a joint Instagram post.
he was in my favorite
How do you
show
weigh
recently,
douchebags? In
Kim
Instagrams.
Kim's Convenience, which people should check out on Netflix. Apple may owe you money for the following reasons. Here, I
Apple
think it's
may owe
all
you for which of the following reasons: high iPhone repair costs, alleged privacy issues with Siri, an iCloud data hack, or all of the above. I'm thinking it's all of the above.
I also think it's all of the above.
Brandy would not kick. Was that
Chris Evans.
Mr. Liu or Mr. Evans?
Chris Evans. And I mean, to be fair, there's a scene in I don't remember which of the Avengers where
Brandy
Chris
said them all.
Evans rips a log apart, and that guy got jacked. He got jacked for that. I
Yeah,
agree with
we're gonna
Brandy. All of the above.
all of the above. No, it's an alleged privacy issue with Siri. The possible payout is part of a $95 million settlement stemming from a lawsuit about accidental Siri activations.
All right.
We're not doing well in this trivia quiz either.
Nope. Well, we've only missed two.
2 out of 3.
All right.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Listen, Meatloaf.
Meatloaf. Question number 4. Todd Blanche, President Trump's personal attorney, was appointed acting Librarian of Congress. Whom
This
did he
is such a
replace?
hard quiz.
It was Brooks Hayden, Mary Hatch, Carla Hayden, or Evelyn Carnahan. I think it's Carla Hayden.
I'm going to
Um,
guess that it's one of the two with similar sounding last names to be confusing. And of the two, I would choose
it
Carla
was
Hayden.
it was a woman,
All right, so
definitely.
then let's go with Carla Hayden.
That's
Nice job.
the right one. Was the first woman and first black person to serve as a librarian of Congress. Blanche has no experience or education in library services, which is par for the course of a Trump appointee.
Yep.
They have no experience in the job that they're being put into. So,
Right.
question number 5. Major League Baseball decided to officially remove more than a dozen players, including including Pete Rose and Chulos Joe Jackson, from its permanently ineligible list for which of the following reasons: they are dead, they paid large fines, new evidence exonerating them, or thousands of fans signed a petition.
First, let me talk about how weird it is that you read up to down. You can take that instead of left to right, like a
Oh,
normal American. You can take that Chinese crap and stick it up your Deng Xiaoping. um,
ping.
I think it's they are dead.
Yes, it is. They are dead because they were facing a lifetime ban,
Right. Right.
and the lifetime is over, so they are okay now.
Yep. I mean,
Rose and Jackson, two of the
they did
sports
not
most.
call it a lifetime ban when they gave it to them. They said that Pete Rose was banned forever, but they've changed it to being a lifetime ban.
Yeah, well, I think Rose got a lifetime ban. I think that was his sentence from Bart Giamatti. Chillest Joe may not have been a lifetime ban when they announced it, but it was a permanent ban when he was announced. So, yeah, Rose and Jackson, two of the sport's most famous players, were kicked out of baseball for gambling on the game and announcing the historic decision. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred wrote, "Obviously, a person no longer with us cannot represent a threat to the integrity of the game."
Right.
Question number 6: why was Kentucky Derby winning jock Junior Alvarado fined $62,000 and suspended for 2 racing days? Allegations of doping, weight limit violation, failure to pay entrance fees, or overuse of his whip.
I'm going to guess overuse of the whip.
Yeah, I would assume that's probably it.
Because doping, right? It's not the jockeys who do doping; it's the horses. You wouldn't ban the jockey for that reason. Weight limit
Yeah, because
violations,
I mean, you want them to be as light as possible.
exactly.
Randy
Weight limit
says overuse.
violations, you get weighed going in and coming out.
Yeah,
Failure to pay entrance fees again wouldn't be a jockey issue, so it's got to be overuse of the whip.
yeah,
Brandy agrees.
yeah. Racing regulations allow riders to whip their horses a maximum of 6 times per race. Alvarado hit Sovereignty 8 times during the Run for the Roses. Bastard.
Yeah.
Question number 7. Which member of President Trump's cabinet said, I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me?
It's the
No
only
shit.
doctor not on the.
Yes. Dr. Mehmet Oz, Dr. Dave Weldon, Dr. Jeanette Nishwat, or Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
F for failure.
Yeah. Brandy, I also play the ponies, and I think that is a. It's legitimate to say that we should diminish the use of the whip. The
Yeah.
you know Jerry Seinfeld has a great routine about that. It's like, do the horses know that they're racing? I don't know if the horses know they're racing. They know that the jockey is in a hurry, right? And he conveys that to them. But they start off and they run the race and they're running and they're like, the jockey's in a real hurry, he's in such a hurry, run. And then they get to the finish line and the horse is like, here? You want to go here? We were just here. We ran around the track.
Exactly.
We couldn't what was going on. And I think if the horses knew that if they would get shot, if they broke a leg, they would be a lot more careful. Hey, let's not bump into each other.
Oh,
Let's
yeah. I mean, have you ever seen camel racing?
I only
In the
like
UAE, they do
yeah,
camel racing,
yeah,
and
I've seen it
it
just
used to be
casually.
kids. They would put kids up on these
Right.
camels, like real young kids, and now they
Yeah.
do robots.
Oh yeah, I knew
They're
that
little
too.
robot riders, and they just the whip is they're it's much more than 6 times. I will tell you that during a race that whip is just going around on a servo and just slapping the
Interesting.
camel as it goes on its way. But yeah.
Interesting.
Question number 8. Which burger chain has agreed to remove artificial dyes from its menu items? Five Guys, Shake Shack, In N Out, or Burger King?
I'm gonna say Burger King, but I have no idea. I just would guess that the other
Have
guys aren't really significant enough chain right now to be
have you ever
really
seen the,
newsworthy.
Five Guys bit? There's a Five Guys bit on, I've seen it on TikTok and a few things. It's like this couple that do comedy videos, and he's like, "Hey, would you like Five Guys?" And she's, like, thinking immediately, like, a 5-on-1 sexual thing, and she's like, um" Do I get can I've got some names. Can I get some suggestions? And he's like, "It's 5 guys." "Yes, I'm well aware it's 5 guys. I've got some people that I would like to talk to."
Right.
And then finally he goes, "It's the burgers, Five Guy burgers." She's like, "Oh, burgers. Oh, okay. Yes, I would love that."
So we got a lot of opinions on this, and I just want to say I confirm with
In and out?
Dr. Moulton's point that every horse in the Derby was descended from Secretariat. Uh, it is, but horses being put out to stud, that's their life, whether they win or not. Well, I mean, maybe not as much, but also, Chuck, they don't really do natural insemination anymore. There's a great episode of the Jackass movie where they go into this in depth, where essentially a person comes in with a glove with a long straw and masturbates the stallion to climax, so that they can get everything,
Okay,
and then
so my job isn't so bad.
exactly. I mean, the VA is similar to that, but the but yeah, so now you can make an argument that if the person warms the glove up beforehand, um, maybe it's not such a bad experience. But I would recommend that scene on Jackass.
Oh, I
Uh,
don't know that I'll watch that. Uh, let's
so
do In and Out.
Heidi and Brandy said In and Out, and that makes me likely to go with them, even though John agreed with me and said Burger King. It is In
Correct
and Out.
on the
Good
In and
job.
Out.
Good job, ladies.
eliminating artificial dyes from its strawberry milkshakes and pink lemonade. Question number 9. President Trump announced plans to drop sanctions against which country this week? Cuba, Zimbabwe, Russia, or Syria? I know it's close.
Say it again. Say it's Syria, though.
Yeah, Cuba, Zimbabwe, Syria, or Russia and Syria, whichever which you want to read it.
It's Syria, right?
It is Syria. Yeah, lifting the sanctions on Syria, give them a chance at greatness. I have no word on whether they're going to put a Trump golf course there in Syria.
Right.
Question number 10. Which of the following nearly knocked New Zealand cyclist Dion Smith off his bike during the Giro d'Italia? A drunken spectator, a runaway goat, a low-flying drone, or an angry seagull?
I'm going to guess a low-flying drone, but I don't know.
I don't. Cycling is one of those sports that just glazes my eyes over.
Yeah.
Brandy
Randy
says
also thinks drone.
drone with a question
Yep.
mark. Heidi says goat.
Tom Brady?
I mean, if he was in Italy,
I like
maybe that
drone.
happened.
What do you say, Dave?
I kind of like the idea of the goat. Oh, John says seagull. Now we're just all over the place.
Yeah.
All right, let's do goat. Live with the consequences. It is the
Nice
goat.
job.
Yeah,
Good
Smith
job.
just spotted a small herd of goats by the side of the road when one of them darted into his path. That would have sucked.
Yeah.
But all right, so we got 8 out of 10. Not bad after a rough start.
Rough start.
Good job.
I
Good
put
job,
the
everybody.
Jackass horse video
Yeah, there we go.
into the scene, so anybody wants it can find it.
Yeah. So that's the show this week. Thank you all for joining us. Give us a like, share, subscribe wherever you're at.
Yep.
Really helps us out. Expands our reach,
Yeah.
our
Those
global
of you who've
reach.
been sharing it on your homepage,
Yeah.
your checks are in the mail.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All that revenue sharing.
Exactly right. I think, in fact, we talked about this, and I think we've been paying you guys a share of the revenue. I think we're going to double that.
Yeah.
We're going to double everybody's payout.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
thanks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. We'll talk to you all next week.